Okay, we should be live any moment now, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome.
Are we good? Should we go? Okay.
We're broadcasting?
Yep.
Okay.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today in this turbulent time. I'm grateful that you're here and also very grateful for the panelists today that came on board. My name is Yirun Kang, Assistant Professor of Interaction Design at Parsons. And this is our fifth lecture in the series called CD Lecture Series. And there are two more to come in the rest of the semester, so stay tuned. Today, we are kind of experimenting a little bit with the format in light of the current kind of societal climate, and invited 4 designers to have a conversation on the topic of how they have applied their design practice towards projects with social impact or social benefit. It'll be kind of a conversational Q&A. They're planning to hold an open discussion with everyone towards the end of the session, so memo your questions. The panelists today are Kim Bost and Kyra Price of Work & Co. They're waving their hands. Bryce Willen of Public Mechanics, and Wes O'Hare of Dropbox. And Kim will lead the conversation today. And yeah, thank you again for joining us today, guys. And I'll let Kim take it from here.
Thanks, Rune. Hey, everybody. Good to see you. I can't really see you. Most of you have your cameras off, which is your choice. Totally fine. But we're hoping to make this like conversational and definitely like question and answer format. So I guess the first thing to say about the session, similar to what Rune just told you, is feel free to ask us questions. That's what we're here for. Feel free to turn on your cameras if you feel comfortable doing that, unmute, ask us questions, or even use the chat. That's also totally fine. And speaking of chat, hey, Juliet, how's it going? I just posted a bunch of links to our work in case it's helpful to, pull up our websites and examples of our work as designers, as well as we took the liberty of just like coming up with a list of questions that may be helpful to you in case you're like feeling stuck and, want to think about the types of things that you can ask us. Again, like, no right or wrong answer. The idea of this format is meant to be like, conversational and seminar like. So with that said, I'm going to do a quick screen share just to introduce us and tell you a little bit more about what we do and why we're here. So give me 1 second to pull that up. Can you all see my screen? I'm seeing, yeah, okay, got thumbs up. All right, everybody, thank you so much. And I should also say, Bruce, Kyra, Wes, also feel free to chime in. I was joking earlier before this, there's nothing harder than presenting your own work other than presenting other designers' work, because you really just want to make sure you do it justice. So, feel free to chime in. But welcome to Real Talk, everybody, the experimental format. Again, this is meant to be an open Q&A conversation. And we just want to open up, a little bit, first starting about this topic and why we chose this topic, and then going into just a brief intro of the 4 of us and who we are as designers and our practice. And then finally, yes, the end of this will be Q&A, questions and answers conversation, hopefully. So why did we do this? Why did we want to open this up for some real talk? I think, as Rune said, it's pretty obvious. We are in a really unprecedented, challenging time. I don't want to state the obvious because you're all feeling it right now. I can only imagine what it's like to be a design student and having to like take classes remotely. I'm sure it's really, really challenging in ways that, I can't even begin to understand. And then on top of that, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're trying to fight and write, a system of, deep injustice and racism, and our country is more divided than it's ever been before. And so all of these things and more and more and more are just like compounding. And yeah, I don't know, it's a real, I said to Rune, I think when I pitched this, it's a real shit show out there, and we just want to have an honest conversation with you. But I think the other side of this, and the thing that's really unique to design and designers, is that, you know, you all are studying to build a very specialized skill set, and we as designers have a skill set that's very unique and very powerful and can have impact and work towards change, you know, with like small examples and large examples, and that's really what we're here to talk to you about today. That's sort of what is the unifying ingredient across the four of us. And you know, we were selected very intentionally because there's a broad spectrum between the four of us and what we do and how we practice design and the things that we do in our practice to get at social impact and to get at, you know, projects that can have change. So you'll hear from all of us, but you know, some of us do this as a side hustle, some of us do this as our dedicated full-time job. Our projects range from like building community to fundraising for nonprofits to activism and maybe even policy change at the other end of that. And also, I think what's really interesting, you know, as you know, sophomore students, as persons who are really thinking about the broad application of design and communication design, we also have a range of, you know, digital and physical experiences to talk about as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about that and hope that you find it interesting too. So diving into us and just a little bit about us. So Wes O'Hare is joining us. Wes, wave again.
Hey everyone.
That's Wes. Wes is a product design manager at Dropbox and a founder of Blacks Who Design. And Wes, you're based in LA, right?
Yeah. Born and raised in California. I'll probably die here.
I mean, California is lovely. It's a lovely place to be.
Yeah.
But so Wes is in LA, did a brief stint in San Francisco. When he's not at Dropbox, he is mentoring early stage startups at Backstage Capital. And Wes, you know, in addition to mentorship, like, you know, really cares about technology and creating diversity in tech specifically. So, and I think that's a lot about, you know, Blacks Who Design, what it's about. So, you know, diving into some of his works before Wes was at Dropbox, he worked at a lot of startups and also worked at Huddle, which Huddle is owned by Nike. Is that right?
Yeah, we had like a pretty strong partnership with them. And so I basically worked kind of in the middle of both companies where I was working on like the partnership and as well as some of the Huddle stuff.
Right. And it's an app for, it's an app for coaches, right?
Yeah, it's basically like a app for coaches and athletes to like gauge their performance and just improve when it comes to like playing like US football.
Nice. And so after Huddle, Wes joined Dropbox, which is, he's still at Dropbox. And actually that's where Wes and I met. You'll see later that I worked at Dropbox. And you're working on the future of work, right? And the future of, you know, helping people release their creative energy.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's what we're all about. And so, yeah, I haven't been at the company for almost 5 years now. I've worked on just a lot of different teams, a lot of different parts of the product. And this was like some of the work from the file recovery projects that I was working on at the time.
Great. So super helpful feature if you're using Dropbox. And I don't know if you are at Parsons, but as designers, we use Dropbox all the time. And so some of the stuff that Wes works on helps you restore your files if you lose them or if they accidentally get deleted. You can do a rewind and get it back. And then, you know, really importantly, like the work that we're mostly going to be talking about today is Wes's work founding Blacks Who Design. And so, you know, you talk about how the goal here is really to inspire new designers, right? And create diversity in our feeds and help people find, this amazing talent that's out there to work with, to hire, to be a part of your team. And so we'll deep dive into that. We would love to have your questions about how Wes got here, and he'll talk a little bit about it in just a second. But yeah, this is Wes's big project that we're highlighting that is really about getting at, social impact and change and creating a better world. All right, and now we're going to talk about Kyra. Hi, Kyra.
Hi.
Kyra is a designer at Work & Co. So Kyra and I both work for Work & Co. We're both designers there. Kyra is originally from Pasadena, has also lived in Japan, working as a designer, and has been in New York for, did you say 9 years?
Yeah.
So you've got your New Yorker card.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit of California and New York. They're pretty much even right now for me. So, yeah.
Great. Something that I really love about Kyra's background, and I think it's really interesting to think about as a student who's studying design, is, Kyra actually studied civil engineering and architecture before realizing that she wanted to practice, graphic design. So your career started in the construction industry, right? And working on interior renovations for hospitality-like buildings. Nice. And then diving into some of Kyra's work at Work & Co. So, and let me apologize, everyone, my Zoom is laggy, Figma is laggy. Kyra has these beautiful transitions of design work and interaction work that she's done. But, it's 2020, and so things are just kind of like lagging. I'm sorry. But designing, this is a kiosk, right, for IKEA and wayfinding?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we did some concepting around the kiosk inside of IKEA, and a lot of the concepts were revolved around this way of finding your way both around the store, being able to find the products that you want quickly, but also being able to check out or save a list or things like that. So just making your IKEA experience less hectic than it usually is.
Yeah, I won't go into the side note of seeing many couples break into tears at IKEA. And then this is another example, right? Oh, this is the same example of the shopping experience.
Oh, here. Yeah, this is just showing searching a product. It's a bit slow, but being able to be surfaced all these different categories of products. Maybe you want to search by room or by style. So just showing how we can change that experience for you in the store.
Nice. Beautiful. And Kyra has also done really great work for Equinox, rethinking their digital experiences and websites. And then also recently worked on a project called Woke Vote, which is a part of Work & Co.'s fund that we announced to do a significant amount of work, $1 million worth of work in pro bono initiatives. So specifically, we're investing in design and technology that advances the Black community. Do you want to tell them about Woke Vote, or I can too?
Oh, sure. So Woke Vote is really focused on getting people to vote in marginalized communities, places where people aren't just low income communities, things like that. And it was really awesome to be able to work with them and help them through this. This was a very fast project. I think we designed and built it in about 4 weeks. So we were able to have some impact for this specific election, but it's basically a site that gives you everything that you need in one place. So learning about how you can vote, learning about your registration status, making a plan, and even being able to add things to your calendar, find a ride to the polls. So just streamlining all of this so that when the organizers are speaking with someone on the field, or if a voter comes to this site, they have all their information in one place. And it's really, it's organized by state. So each state has their own site.
Wow, nice.
And here we're just providing extra information for them. So sometimes people don't know the specifics around what they need to bring on election day or how voting early works. So making sure they feel supported and knowing all of that information as well.
Great. So again, we're going to deep dive into some of this stuff and sort of talk about how we got to this place. But yeah, be thinking of questions for Kyra about woke vote. And then we have Bruce. And so, hi, Bruce.
Hey.
I think Bruce is a really interesting example because if you think about Kyra and Wes and myself, you know, our projects that we've done that are geared towards social impact are kind of more on the side hustle side or more of the exception. And Bruce, you know, I would say that, and I'm curious if you would agree, you know, your practice, especially your practice now in the studio that you founded, Public Mechanics, is really dedicated towards, you know, work that is for sort of like public impact and social change, and creating a sense of community and strengthening community.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, and that's really one of the goals of why I founded this new studio. And even with Post Typography, the studio that I co-ran for 13 years, that was, you know, a primary focus of our work was really on work that had a social impact. Although I don't think that wasn't necessarily the stated goal of the studio. Just part of our ethos. Right.
You said it wasn't a stated goal of the studio; it just kind of happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of our ethos. I mean, Nolan is our co-founder of Post Typography, and myself. We have this, you know, kind of DIY punk rock background, and I think just from the beginning we were just very interested in doing work and supporting people who are making good things happen in the world.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we'll see some examples of that. Bruce lives and practices in Baltimore by way of New Mexico. As he said, Public Mechanics is not the first design studio that Bruce has started and founded. So he started with Post Typography and is now working as Public Mechanics. And, you know, something that I love about Bruce is he's very multifaceted as a designer and an artist. So he's a designer, he's an artist, he's a writer, he's a musician. His work also sort of transcends a lot of mediums, going from branding to digital to experiential, which you'll see some examples of in just a second. You know, Bruce, by way of Post Typography and Public Mechanics, has really sort of like shaped some of the physical landscape in Baltimore. If you visited Baltimore, you might recognize some of his work. And I love the way, Bruce, that you kind of like describe your practice. This is Bruce's illustration. You talk about taking on projects that jaywalk through the intersection of experiential design, placemaking, public art, and civic design. So it sounds like you're really trying to like blur the lines here in a really interesting and healthy way, refreshing way, I would say.
Maybe, or perhaps do too much. I'm not totally sure.
I mean, that's, yeah. I'm sure you feel that at times too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did that drawing just to partially to like help myself figure out what I'm doing or what I want to be doing. It was kind of a good way to visualize it for me.
I love that. I maybe want to come back to that as, you know, things that we do as designers to help us like find clarity in our practice and our projects. Drawing is a really great tool for that, obviously. And just some examples of Bruce's work. And Bruce, you know, feel free to chime in here. So this is a recent project, right, from a public library in DC. How do you, Anacostia? What's the name of the
Yeah, in the
library?
Anacostia neighborhood.
Okay, Anacostia neighborhood. And so you were talking about here, you're really being very playful with seating and reimagining it as an expression, as a form of expression, stretching chairs and spaces and benches into the surreal and whimsical shapes that activate a sense of play. So you kind of have like a key down here with the friends chair and the rainbow chair and the yoga chair and the smile bench and the frown bench, pyramid chair, seesaw bench, skewed chair. And I love like seeing people actually, you know, interacting with these things and sitting on them and having fun.
Yeah, this was a fun project. It was a public art project that one of the goals was specifically to create alternative play spaces in DC. So that play was kind of part of the project and something that I've been interested in my work in some way or another for a long time.
Yeah, it's really interesting how, you know, yeah, having these sort of unconventional chairs, unconventional objects really invites like action and surprise, I think, for people. Another example of Bruce's work. So Bruce has had a long relationship with the Maryland Film Festival. It's a small but mighty film festival in Baltimore. And part of rebranding the Maryland Film Festival was environmental graphics and signage for the Parkway Theater, which you see here. Bruce has also had a long relationship with the Baltimore Museum of Art. So this is a project, The Necessity of Tomorrow. It was a conversational series on art and race and social justice and imagining the futures that we want. So like very topical for the types of things that we're talking about today. The series featured world-renowned Black artists and writers, including Ta-Nehisi Coates, Boots Riley, and Mark Bradford. Oops, sorry. And you can kind of see like how these examples here start to, again, blur the lines, which I think Bruce is really great at, blur the lines between, you know, art and promotion.
Yeah, and this project was really exciting because we collaborated with the museum on this, and they really wanted to kind of push the boundaries a little bit and take the themes of the conversation beyond the walls of the museum and literally into the streets. So there's all these like bus ads, and we did these kind of guerrilla art or design pieces that went with it as well.
Would you describe like the typography over the no loitering sign as guerrilla?
Yeah, sort of. I don't really know what the best way to, at least there are these kind of, as you said, it sort of blurs the line a little bit between art and design. I mean, it's a statement about loitering and then hopefully getting people to think about some of the the racist history and the different ways that like loitering signs were used as this oppressive tool, or loitering laws, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super light stuff. That's really powerful. And another project with the Baltimore Museum of Art. So you were invited to design a space in the museum's newly remodeled contemporary wing. And so, here is an example of using a space and creating activities where people can explore the use of text in contemporary art. And then finally, would you describe this as maybe a more community-driven example of your work?
I don't know. Sorry, this was, I mean, in a way, this is somewhat more conventional. It's, well, the Waverly community, they needed a sign for the neighborhood, and they were like, hey, they had they want us to do like a wooden sign that looked sort of like ye old, and we're like, we could do that, or we could do kind of a cool sculptural thing, like maybe it's this weird W that you can see that changes shape as you walk around it. And they luckily they were into that idea. But yeah, I mean, this project I think is in some ways maybe like less social impact, but I think it's the social impact of the project comes in that it's, you know, kind of creating a focal point in the neighborhood and giving, you know, creating this like landmark for a place for community.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. You said luckily they bought it. Maybe at some point we can come back and talk about how we sell these ideas to people and get them to agree to our designs.
Always a challenge.
Always a challenge. And then, okay, finally, me, Kim. I'm a design director at Work & Co. As I mentioned, I live in Brooklyn, spent some time in Baltimore, which is how I got to know Bruce. Went to undergrad in North Carolina, got a BFA at UNCG. And, you know, in my career, I've kind of transitioned from starting as an art director to a product designer. So I've worked at places like Etsy, the New York Times, Etsy, Dropbox, and now Work & Co. So my day job, or actually, let me back up. A big reason why I was pushing for this topic too today is because I speak and write and think a lot about how design is bigger than its artifacts, meaning that design is so much more than logos or prototypes or I don't know, posters. When we really start to think about design having a broad definition and being more as a process and as a way of thinking, then we can start to, one, bring other people into design and make it inviting and strengthen relationships with people and build communities with people so that we can, you know, set ourselves up and set our work up to really have, you know, sort of meaningful impact. And so I think that's a lot about what we're talking today. Like I said, day job at Work & Co. I do things like design AR experiences for IKEA, build, you know, retirement products for Goldman Sachs. That's probably something that a lot of you aren't going to have to worry about for a while, but when you do, maybe one of my designs will help you. And then I spend, you know, my off hours, my side time, doing work like this. So I partner with Tech for Campaigns to design social ads and websites for progressive candidates who, you know, otherwise wouldn't be able to afford, you know, a designer on their team. And I also have started this project with a group of friends called Kitchen Rodeo. And so basically what we're doing, this started, you know, in the beginning of the pandemic, and we're hosting cooking classes via Zoom with, you know, passionate home cooks or famous chefs to raise money for charity. So we've raised over $100,000 for places like City Harvest, Fair Fight, Legal Defense Fund, One Fair Wage, Roar, etc. And so, you know, kind of how this came to be, it all started, and this is such a cliche because everyone was making a sourdough starter, you know, when we were stuck at home for those first couple of weeks. But it all started with a sourdough starter class. And then we started reaching out and getting responses from the folks who run King, which is like a really great restaurant in New York on 6th Avenue, Natasha Pikowicz, Tartine in San Francisco, Wilson Tang, who does Namwa, Eric Z, who runs 886, Hawa Hassan, really amazing, talented chefs to, you know, help us raise a bunch of money for them and for good causes. So we've supported over 27 causes, hosted over 60 rodeos at this point. This graphic is a little bit old. And really, like, one of our best moments was having Stacey Abrams join us she didn't stay for the whole cooking class, but she did jump on when we were raising money for Fair Fight. So yeah, just really proud of that moment. So that's us as a group, and I'm gonna stop sharing soon, but to open this up for conversation, again, we sent you some examples of questions in case, you know, you don't have to stick to our script at all, but just in case you're looking for something to maybe inspire you. You know, we're here for you, basically. We're here to have an open conversation. Some things that we could talk about is like, how do you find projects for social impact? How do you know your work is being successful? Do you feel like you have to have design cred to do good and to do this stuff? How do you balance paying the bills and doing community-driven work? How do you start to have control over the types of projects that you take on, either if you're working at an agency or running your own studio or just as a freelancer? All the way to like ranging to things like, just about what it's like to be a designer today in the crazy time. And, it really feels like 2020 will last forever. Will it last forever? So that's it. Yeah, I encourage you to unmute or maybe chat some questions if you have them. Oh, wait, someone already has a question. Should we start there?
Oh, sorry, I'm just pulling up the chat.
So I have a question. I'll read it out loud. I have a question for Bruce Willen. What is your process for your more sculptural and environmental design projects? Do you have a team that you go to build and create the physical designs, or do you do everything yourself?
Yeah, so typically the projects that I work on are created with sometimes a fairly large team, like depending on if it's a big project that's more architectural. Sometimes if it's a smaller project, I'll work on some or all aspects of it myself. But it's often like you might be collaborating with an engineer, an architect, a sign painter, someone who's a metal fabricator, as well as other like graphic designers who I've worked with post typography or collaborate now with at Public Mechanics. So that's one of the things that I actually really like or enjoy about doing this kind of work, is that it's more challenging and more complicated in some ways, but you also get to have a little bit more of a sense of community and collaboration, even though that it can be frustrating. The ups and downs of collaboration, but that for me, that's really rewarding.
I think that's healthy to hear and healthy to talk about, and something that no one tells you, especially in design school. You kind of have to live it yourself, that a good collaboration doesn't necessarily mean that it's always a collaboration that's in agreement. That often when you're collaborating, you have to navigate differences of opinion and figure out how to build on that and come out on the other side in a sort of constructive way. And that is a very healthy part of the process. So I'm gonna seed some questions. So we had talked about you all about sort of telling our story, as designers, and how we got to where we are and got to work on the projects, like Woke Vote, like Black Suit Design, like Public Mechanics. Kyra, do you want to just tell us a little bit about your story? I think it's really interesting, that transition that you made from engineering and architecture to graphic design, and eventually how you got to work on Woke Vote.
Yeah, definitely. So as Kim said, I ended up graduating, studying civil engineering and architecture, and the job that I got right out of college was within the construction industry. And it was great. I was working on some cool projects that were all interior renovations, but it wasn't the work that I thought I'd be doing. And it wasn't really that creative. So me being me, I often get bored very easily. And so on the side, I was taking some design classes and started taking it a lot more seriously. So once I had finished this design class, I just decided to leave my job and move to Japan and see what happened. And luckily, when I got there, I was able to speak to some people and got an internship there for a few months, which was one of the most amazing experiences of my life thus far. And I hope to go back and work there soon. But yeah, I went to Japan, worked there for a bit, and then came back to New York. Worked for a few agencies, and now ended up here at Work & Co, which has also been a change. I think with my background being in construction and architecture, I think I am still very much attracted to 3D and physical things. So on the side, I find myself doing a lot of furniture design and building. And I think space in general informs a lot of my both physical and digital design. I'm also a dancer, so just figuring out how people fit into space, how you move through space, how space makes people shrink or grow is always really interesting to me. So I think that's something that informs a lot of my design decisions and some of my side projects. But yeah, so I guess being able to work on Wokevote was a really amazing opportunity, and something that just kind of sprung at the perfect time. This being able to be involved in this election in any way was something that I definitely wanted to do, and being able to do that through my day job was even better. So just collaborating with organizers and really getting to understand their day-to-day, how hard their work is, but how valuable and how much they love and how passionate they are about what they do, really made Wokevote what it is, and made us all really excited to continue to work with them and make this impact on this election and elections beyond, because it definitely doesn't end here. So, yeah.
I think that's a great point to sort of not end on, but that's a great point to make. That I was even thinking about that as we were pulling together this talk and this topic, and regardless of maybe an upbeat tone that everything is taking today, like there's still a lot of work to do and a lot of like communities and services in need. So there's no sort of like shortage of opportunities for design to contribute and continue to like have impact. You mentioned other side projects.
Yes, I do a lot of dabbling in little things. Furniture is one of the things that I've gotten more serious about, I think, over the years. So just like for me, it's when I want a new piece of furniture in my house, instead of buying it, I just build it. But I also get cool opportunities with, I said before, I'm a dancer, and I used to be a part of a dance group, and I did a lot of graphics for them. And right when COVID started, we decided to design this sweatshirt to sell, and then donate the money. And that's something that I always love to do, and something that is really easy to do. And I know a lot of people, I think one of the questions was, do you need design credibility to make things work and make a change? And I think the answer is absolutely not. And that's something that I think we've seen over this process of quarantine and the pandemic, people doing anything they can to help or to lift people's spirits, despite their level in design, or whether or not they're a designer at all. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, like we have so many. I feel like being a designer gives you such a great like tool set to do so much, right? And we have so many skills and tools at our fingertips that you're absolutely right. Like you can have so much impact as an individual, regardless of quote unquote cred. And like, what the hell is cred anyways, Right. Wes, will you tell us a little bit about your story and Black Suit Design?
Yeah, for me, Black Suit Design, like you were talking about, it was a little bit more like a side hustle project for me. And it was one of those things where I actually wasn't even trying to create a project or like a thing. It really just started with a tweet for myself, where like I just wanted to connect with other Black designers. And so I just, for an entire week, I gave up my lunch hour and just like, connected with folks and just did like, little like career conversations. That turned into like a little bit of a Slack group where we started to connect. And in that Slack group, one of the designers kind of posed the question. He was like, "Hey, like, where are all the other like Black designers in the industry? Like I think he was a junior at the time up at Waterloo, and he was just like, like, are there more people, like us out there in the industry?" And I was like, "Yeah, there are. I think they're just like in little pockets. We haven't like connected and networked yet." And so at the time, there was a site called Women Who Design that was started by Jules Forrest, that just highlighted all the incredible women, in the design industry. Another one another site came out called Latinx Who Design, that was started by Pablo Stanley. And so I put it out to our group. I was like, hey, should we have something like this for the Black community? And so everyone immediately was just like, yes, yes, yes. And so over the course of about 2 months, we basically put it together. So we had like a little team of like about 5 people that were working on the site and launching and pre-launch and like feeding it with, people and all that type of stuff. And it was a super fun project. We launched it Black History Month. I think it was maybe 2 years ago now, or a year and a half. And yeah, the response was just like overwhelming. And that little Slack group that we had that started with like 10 people now has grown to something like 1,200 Black designers are now in that group, really just like connecting with each other, passing along tips and opportunities and jobs and all that type of stuff. And yeah, it's just been really fun just to be a part of it, and just to see like opportunity grow for like other people and have that spotlight shine on like people that might not normally like get a spotlight.
It's interesting that there's the website part of it, but then there's also, like you said, the community part of it, the like Slack group, 1,200 people having conversation. I'm curious, it's interesting to hear about the origin story, I think, like starting with just like mentorship conversations and like thinking about, where this community is at now with 1,200 people. What's the time frame? Like, how did from point A to point B?
Yeah, so like I probably took 2 minutes, and it sounded like really quick, but it was definitely like a time frame. Like really, it was probably a couple of years ago now when I actually like launched that tweet, and yeah, and really it was just like a thing where I wasn't trying to like necessarily like create a thing. It was just like, all right, like I had this problem that I found, which was just like, and maybe like this is kind of like the learning for me, was just like pick problems that are like close to home, where like, I also just wanted to connect with like other Black designers, because like I just wanted to like find more, and then also like give back to more. And so like that turned into one thing, and then like, we started talking, it turned into another thing, and then it started talking more, and it turned into like a bigger thing. And so yeah, it's like, as long as you're like creating community and just like bringing people like along the journey and along each inflection point, I think there's like something special about that. And so yeah, it definitely like was like a journey. And for a while things had gotten, I don't want to say like flat, but like, like we had the initial launch, I think it was last year, and things were like super cool. And then obviously, everything that happened over the summer, with George Floyd, and kind of since May, there's been like another like uptick in just, visibility with the site. And so yeah, the site's been, up and running, and it's really just to serve a couple goals. One was just like the connect, those of us that are in the community, so that like, people like Tolu who are up in Waterloo, they know that there are other Black designers out in the industry. And then 2, for like anyone who's not in the community, like it's a good resource to like, diversify your Twitter feeds, or, like the types of designers you might know, or, you might want to refer, when there's like a open role at your company, something like that. And so, yeah, we were super excited that it could be a resource to really like both communities.
Yeah, I love the community building aspect of it. And, I think it's like a really cool example that, I think like anyone here who's watching this who's a student, if if there's something that you're really passionate about, and, you put in the effort, and, get a few other people together, you can really create this hub where other people can come together and, do something bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's all about, is just, community. It took a community to build it, just because like, like like I said, like, you know, this is like a side hustle. I basically kept myself to being able to like work on this while I'm on like BART trains going to and from like, you know, Dropbox. And so like being able to rally, you know, like, you know, 3 or 4 other folks to like really get in, contribute in Figma and Paper Docs and like help, you know, launch this thing, really helped a ton.
Yeah, I think it's also it's helpful, like to your point, Wes, and to your point, Bruce, like being passionate about something and wanting to get something started is a great motivator. Being a student and having like all sorts of talented people, you know, in your community and people you can lean on and leverage is also really great. And then hearing your story, Wes, about, to me, it's comforting to hear that it didn't happen overnight, because it's easy for me to get overwhelmed or discouraged when I see really successful examples of things like this. And just, you know, think like you don't go from like 0 to 60. Like you just took one small action, and then it built and it built and it built, and it got to some place that was really like, you know, powerful. What's next? Do you have any
for Black Suit Design?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a great question. Like, I mean, I've gotten questions around like, you know, is this like a business? And I'm like, like, I don't know if like I want it to be like a business or anything like that. But like, yeah, I think really it's just about like creating hopefully like a sustainable community, like for people to actually like, you know, get more opportunity. And so I think like right now I'm just trying to find ways to like better source and organize like the different opportunities. So we actually get a lot of companies that are like, hey, how can we, you know, like get our roles in front of your community, or, you know, we're looking for like speakers for a thing. And so just figuring out like just like a really robust way to like scale that, so that we can, you know, play the matchmaking game of like, hey, like here's the school opportunity. Here are people that are like, you know, able and like ready to kind of like fulfill that opportunity. And so that could look like, you know, job boards, or like a special thing for like, you know, speakers that are in our community, things like that. And the second part is, this all came out of like just a love for like mentorship. And so finding ways to just create more mentoring opportunities for this community. So we partnered with Spotify earlier this year. They had like 40 designers mentor a bunch of the designers in Black Suit Design. We're doing a similar thing with Dropbox. So we're gonna have like a bunch of Dropbox designers just do a bunch of one-on-one conversations. And I think that's just kind of that's at the heart of like the community, and I think of the story. And so I think it's nice that we kind of keep doing that, and then also like try and find ways to scale it.
That's great. I'm tempted to ask you all about mentorship. I saw Kyra like really like shaking her head when you said that. I agree. I don't know. It's so powerful, both as an individual and as someone who can like, you know, potentially like help someone else build their skill set. Did mentorship play a big role for any of you in your careers and getting to where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, it was pretty obvious. So, like, I mean, for me, it was a lot of just cold calling people when I was like in school, or cold emailing people, and then just being like the noisy wheel that gets the oil, or the squeaky wheel that gets the oil.
Yeah.
And yeah, those relationships and conversations have opened up, you know, just different things, you know, for me over the years. I mean, the reason why I'm at Dropbox is because like I connected with a designer at a conference, and we started like these little mentoring calls, and he was like, hey, like you should just come over to Dropbox, and that kind of like kick things off.
We have a question. Oh, Bruce, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Zoom is so awkward. You never know. Like, you just can't read the body language. Okay, there's a question in the chat. Since the examples of your design work and projects are mainly geared towards building and supporting communities, I was wondering if you could recommend ways that we as design students can best support social justice.
I don't know. I think that's a challenge, through design. Using design as a tool to support social justice. That's like one way. I think there are probably better ways, honestly, than using graphic design to support social justice. Actually, getting involved on a more community level, whether it's going to neighborhood meetings or involved with like an activist group in your city or town or nationally. And I think there can be ways that, like, once you kind of can get plugged in, maybe there's opportunities where you can use graphic design to support them. Like maybe they need some flyers designed or a video produced or something like that. One thing, I think it's like easy when you're a designer and you have design training to think about design as like, oh, this is the skill that I have that I'm going to use to solve a problem. And, if I think, just like, frankly, well, my opinion at least, I think if you want to, make the biggest impact in the world, you should be like a teacher or an activist or get involved in politics or something. Like, don't be a designer. You can do a lot with design, but if your ultimate goal is like to have like the biggest social impact, there's like a lot of other paths you can take. But I think it's really finding ways, like trying to connect with people that you can that you think you could help with your skill set as a designer, and then you can sort of use design to support what they're doing, kind of like amplify their message. I know that's kind of like a broad answer, but Kim, I'd be interested in hearing, since you have been sort of working with some of these progressive politicians and candidates, like, I think that's that's a cool example of how design could be used to support social justice.
Yeah, totally. Actually, this question and where this topic is kind of going reminds me of, I think there's like it's not necessarily a hot debate, but a debate on social media within the community about, like, for example, a lot of people with the election are like using their graphic design skills to like design like get out the vote graphics or something and like posting them on their Instagram or whatever. And there's a lot of criticism of that because of what you just expressed, Bruce, which is, just designing a cool looking poster and putting it on social media. You're just like preaching to the choir. You're not really like getting involved in a meaningful way in the like sort of community and in the activism that's like actually needed to have an impact on these issues. So yeah, but I would say like some of the work that I do is maybe like the middle ground. So I'm still like squarely applying my graphic design skills, but I'm volunteering with an organization called Tech for Campaigns, who, pairs designers and developers and marketing people, all sorts of disciplines with like either grassroots campaigns or just like campaigns that are underfunded that need the help to like have the basics, so like have a website or have any sort of like ad on social media that feels professional. And so I think what's interesting there as a designer is that job is not about doing quote unquote good graphic design. It's not about like making like cool looking graphic design. It's about trying to make something that is authentic to them and authentic to their campaign and authentic to their community. So if I were like, when I show that work, I'm like, as a designer, I'm like, oh God, it's not like the best looking stuff. But that's actually great because that definition is just sort of like an insular design definition. And, if I were to approach those graphics as like, let me make the coolest looking social media graphic that I can, it would absolutely like alienate their base and not get their message out. So long-winded answer of saying You really got to understand your audience and the goals that are needed. We have another question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add to that. I think that said, I think there's definitely a lot of need for designers to support. I think there's, when you're thinking about like some like nonprofits or like small organizations or activists who are doing really great work in community, like on the ground. Yeah, I think there's a really big need for communication and design skills. And so if you can, sort of identify some organizations in your community who maybe need help, I mean, I think that's like a really great way to get plugged in and kind of put your skills to work. And I think so much what Kim was saying, like it may not be the coolest, flashiest project, but it can have like a huge impact on people's lives.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for how to manage your time while working on multiple projects and making decisions about what you want to take on / what is doable aside from your full-time job? So maybe the side hustle folks. And then Bruce, would be interesting to hear your take from a studio perspective too.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the trick was really like just time boxing myself on like the project that I was working on, and the most important thing was really just connecting with with like-minded people so that we could kind of like load balance some of the work. Honestly, like Black Suit Design would not be like a thing if it was literally just me working on it. It would have been dead on the vine. And so, yeah, definitely like just figuring out like the people that are going to partner like with you in this effort is definitely one thing. As far as just like managing time and multiple projects, I mean, the quick things I could say are just around like, blocking out your time, just like making sure you're saying no to like probably 50% of the stuff. Yeah, that would be about it.
Yeah, I think in terms of deciding what projects to take on, if you do have like a little wiggle room and you have a full-time job, for me personally, I try to only take on projects that really align with like my values, and make sure I don't like, if you do end up developing a style, making sure that the person who's hiring you is hiring you for what you do versus your skill set. That's been something that is really important to me, just making sure that I'm just able to do what's true to me and some of the things I take on the side.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And actually, like post typography, my old studio, it started off as a side hustle for me and my partner, and eventually became our full-time jobs. So it's, I think sometimes those projects that you're doing that are passion projects that are, helping out the small business or the like local band or something like that, like those are the things that sort of help you build your skill set and your portfolio. And I think for us, we kind of lucked out in that we were able to develop enough of a portfolio and sort of enough of a network that we were able to sort of slowly grow that into work that paid the bills. And also being in Baltimore helped. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for being someplace where it's cheap to live. You don't have to feel like you need to be making like a shit ton of money all the time to like pay the bills. That you can sort of afford to focus on the projects you care about and projects that have a social impact.
Great. I'm mindful that we are at time, and I see people dropping. So I guess maybe we should bring it to a close.
Yeah, I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here today. I think it's definitely one of the first times that we've had a panel format for our lecture series. So it's great to see this interaction and see the questions that the students have. So I really appreciate all of you for joining us today. Thank you so much. And thank you
Yeah,
everybody
thank
who's
you.
on the
Thank
call.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
awesome.
having
Thanks.
us. Thanks
Yeah.
everybody
All
for
right, well,
coming.
I hope everybody has a great Friday and also weekend. And thank you everybody for joining us for today's CD lecture series.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.